Hello there my friends, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another review. So once again we bear witness to the inevitable disintegration of a relationship. Whose relationship might that be, you ask? Well, it could be rather a lot of people from Happily Ever After, but in fact it's Natalie and Mike. Yes, that's right, I'm reviewing 90 Day Fiance, Happily Ever After, Season 5, Episode 5, Natalie and Mike. Just before I begin, if you're new here, welcome, and please consider subscribing to the channel. Come on, it's fun over here. And also, please don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoy the review. Guys, pressing the like button really does make a lot of difference to me. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Ebird Online. Right, so without further ado, I give you Mike and Natalie. So guys, there was always just something that I couldn't quite put my finger on about Natalie. And don't just say she's a loon ball, this we know. Something else though, something I could hang my hat on, as it were. So before sitting down to write the script for this video, I had just thought that Natalie was graceless, disobliging, a socially awkward and contrary kind of girl. So of course, whilst I knew all of these things, I couldn't quite work out why. But finally I think I have worked it out. I think I've discovered what the problem is. But unfortunately it's bad news for Mike, very bad news for Mike. Very bad news indeed. So this is my theory, and guys, you know, this is just my opinion and my theory. I'm not saying that this is a fact. And you know, every time the Ebird takes to hypothesizing, people take to their keyboards. And they cry, how do you know? Or, you don't even know her. Or better still, you can't present this as fact. I'm not. I'm going by the only thing we can go by, what we've been given to see on this show. It's not a fact, it's just my opinion. And you're all entitled to it. But anyway, here goes it. I believe Natalie has a low EQ. And it's my belief that Natalie has an almost total deficit of emotional intelligence. I really do. And the happenings of the last 3 or 4 episodes have really managed to sharpen my focus on this issue. So as usual, I'm going to give you your review, but I'm also going to point out and flesh out all the times that Natalie shows a lack of emotional intelligence and see if you guys are with me. So as you know, a couple of episodes ago, Mike left Natalie in the hotel. And this was because Natalie had brought up the fact that one of his so-called friends had been sending him topless photos. Now at the time, you remember I said, I have to look twice at Mike because this is the second allegation now. But when Natalie arrived home the following morning, and she was saying to Mike, I think you should apologise to me and I will apologise to you. Mike said, I'm not apologising because this was literally ages ago. This is all historic. You keep going on and on about the same things all the time. And as we saw, Natalie apologised and Mike said, I will accept your apology at some undetermined date in the future. Oh God, Mike's such a weirdo. Yeah, by the way, Mike, just because we're in on Natalie this week, don't think we've forgotten about you and your shenanigans. We haven't. But Natalie actually admitted, yeah, I probably shouldn't have brought it up at that time. And so this is lack of emotional intelligence number 1. Natalie will create an argument about Mike's supposed cheating or Mike's supposed other women at any time. I really rather thought that Mike had a ridiculous overreaction when he left the hotel room. And I'm not going to lie, I thought he was up to something. But I think Mike was just exasperated, knowing it doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing, whose birthday it is, there's always some allegation of me cheating. And so what would an emotionally intelligent person do? Why, of course, that person would leave it until a day that's not Mike's birthday. There are 364 more of them every frickin' year. So we next catch up with these two guys and they're on the way to Oklahoma to see Mike's mum. And in the lead up to this, we're reminded by TLC that she tried to stop the wedding by 1, ringing Mike and telling him to cancel the wedding to Natalie, which incidentally he did. And then when he put it on again, 2, asking Tamara, the next door neighbour, to stop the wedding midway through the ceremony in what I can only describe as rather a malicious manner. What's always struck me about this is the only thing that Mike's mum Trish needed to do was to not encourage Mike to marry Natalie in the first place. She was the one who stood there and encouraged him to define a date. What was the point of that when you had so many misgivings and reservations? I think Trish is a good old-fashioned yellow belly. She throws rocks and she hides her hands. But yet again there's evidence here of Natalie's lack of emotional intelligence, because remember Natalie said, if I get Trish on side, I get the key to Michael's heart. But Natalie was unable to work out in real time, i.e. when Trish was there, that Trish didn't like her. I could tell by the look on Trish's face she didn't like her, and I could tell by the lack of warmth in the way that Trish spoke to her that she was completely incensed by Natalie. But Natalie didn't manage to click onto this, how the hell not? I only saw her for a 3-minute segment on a TV show. Natalie was with her for 3 or 4 whole days, and she was unable to work out that the woman didn't want a bar of her. Low EQ, another example. And so as they're heading down the freeway, off to Oklahoma, Mike looked at Natalie and said, "Throw all the negative energy out of the car." "Hello, is that 999? Ambulance, please. There's a blonde in the middle of the road. I'm not too sure. Apparently, she was just following orders." Oh, Mike really is a clot, isn't he? Mike, Natalie is negative energy. She comes ensconced in her own personal negative energy, and she carries with her own personal black cloud wherever she goes. Sun's silver lining. That's Natalie. You can like it or divorce it. But Mike's trying to be fake jolly in the car, and Natalie, you can tell, is really worried. And Mike talks about the Ukrainian food that Natalie's going to cook for Thanksgiving, and he offers to help, and she said no. Traditional Ukrainian food can only be touched by the hand of a Ukrainian. And by the look of traditional Ukrainian food, it can only be put on the tongue of a Ukrainian as well. And Natalie said, "Mike, will everything be okay with your mum?" And Mike said, "It'll be fine, don't worry." Oh, Mike, stop lying. You've already said that your mum won't be fine. You already asked your mum on the phone, and she said, "I don't think everything will be okay." And Natalie says, "It worries me a lot that Mike pretends that there are no problems and he ignores my feelings all the time." Oh dear, Natalie, it's far too late now. They just arrived at SeaTac Airport. And it would seem that SeaTac Airport is home to original and authentic 1970s post-war brutalist architecture. Natalie, this is a sign of things to come. And so Mike's mum meets them at the airport with a balloon, and she gives Mike a big bear hug, and Natalie a lukewarm, lackluster, lifeless tap. But that doesn't bother Natalie. Why, she's got her go-to phrase. Guys, be warned, we've got another classic representation of lack of EQ. And so Natalie said to Trish, "I like your shirt, so beautiful, so gorgeous." And I think Trish said something to her along the lines of, "What about my shirt? What do you like about it?" "I loves the colour." Because I'm sure she remembered it from before when she was wearing blue. "Oh, I loves you in the blue. It's my favourite colour. So nice, so stylish." And remember, she did the same exact thing with Uncle Beau, who, let's face it, dresses like a lesbian from the 1970s. Sorry, old lesbians. But she said he's the most stylish man ever. So Natalie, because she doesn't actually possess emotional intelligence, it doesn't appear to be natural to her, has worked out how she thinks you can fake it. So she knows saying, "You look amazing," often works. She uses it ad infinitum. Guys, this to me is a smoking gun. It's a clear sign that she doesn't actually know when to employ certain tactics and when it doesn't work. The Ebird's building a case. She's building a case. And so they arrive at Trish's house, and they're immediately transported back to the 1980s. And the truth be told, Trish has been gently, how should I say, tugging us into the 1980s with the clothes she wears and with her rather concerning haircut. But now we're at her home, she pulls you right in. And so there's lots of teak and powder pinks, and all over the house there are hundreds and hundreds of piggy banks. Apparently that's what she collects. Natalie asks her why. Why do you collect piggy banks? Just because it's what I started collecting. Oh Lord. Really? Now I see where Mike gets it from. And then Trish shows Natalie around the house, and Natalie says, "I likes the traditional look. I likes the traditional look." Yep, Natalie, the traditional look of the 1980s. And so they sit down and have something to eat, and she's got a massive, big chocolate cake. And it's double chocolate. It's a chocolate cake with, I think, chocolates on top. Natalie has one bite, and then she declines the rest of the cake. You can tell that Trish and Mike think it's massively rude, and to a point, I think it's quite rude. I think I would have tried to eat half of it, or at least just chop it up loads and pretend that I've eaten it. But guess who I blame for all this? Not Natalie, oh no. I blame you, the TLC viewer, because you've been saying that Natalie's pregnant for the last at least 8 months. No wonder she's watching her weight. Well, maybe the Ebird as well, but hey ho. So as they're sitting small talking at the table, Trish asks Natalie, "How's life on the ranch?" "What ranch, Trish? What ranch?" And then she said, "I'm sure living in the mountains and trees is a massive change for you." And Natalie said, "Definitely." And she had the demeanour of a sulking child. And then Trish said, "What would you say the challenges are?" 1. Your son Mike. 2. The next door neighbours. We haven't got any. And 3. Your son Mike. And Natalie said, "Living in the countryside." And Trish and Mike just looked at each other. Trish had a look that said, I don't think I've got the emotional bandwidth to deal with this. And then Natalie continued, I can't find work. I can't do what I want to do. I want a life full of energy and I want to have friends and live a normal life. And I want to continue my career as a journalist, actress and model. Natalie, you forgot fantasist. Oh, Natalie, I've seen your pictures. I'm scratching off model. I've seen your films. I'm scratching off acting. I'm afraid. Journalist. You have the investigative abilities of a fruit bat. You didn't even find out where exactly you'd be living before you immigrated to the United States of America. So on that basis, and that basis alone, I'm scratching off journalist. So what are we left with? Oh, it seems Trish has got an idea. She said, have you thought about translation? Translation? What, from human to android? I guess she could. And then Natalie said to her, no, I want to do what I want to do because I only have one life and I deserve to be happy. Oh my God. Oh my God, really Natalie? Really Natalie? Really? Why don't you just get a job in a little shop for a year or so, build up a bit of money and then say to Mike, let's rent the ranch out to Uncle Bo and Tamara maybe and let's move further into town. It's not rocket science now, is it? Also Natalie, weren't you banging on about wanting a kid? And again, Natalie completely misreads everything. It's supposed to be a light-hearted conversation. That was the whole point. Are there any challenges at living in the countryside? Gosh, yeah, I'm finding it really hard to find work. But you know, I love hiking and I love outdoors pursuits. So it's fantastic for that. And also, it's really nice to be around nature. You know the garb. Anybody else will be able to make that whole conversation fly. But no, not Natalie. Natalie knows not how not to be awkward. And Trish just said, right, okay, bedtime, I think. And Natalie said, night, night. And Trish said, fuck y'all. And when they got into their bedroom, Mike asked her, how are you? And Natalie said, I'm fine. I'm going to shower, brush my teeth, and then I'm going to enjoy my bed. And then Mike said, I can't believe the way Natalie acted tonight. I don't know how this trip's going to go now, and I just can't believe it. She better be really careful though, because my mum's a tough cookie. Really, Mike? All evidence leads to the contrary, I'm afraid. If she's such a tough cookie, why did she raise such a wet, passive-aggressive man-child? And that's where we leave things for this week. So guys, what do you think about my hypothesis that Natalie has low emotional intelligence? I think it's quite strong. And I think we can add several large life events to that as well. Look at how she acted about the ring. She knew it was kind of getting on Mike's nerves, but she didn't stop from asking day after day after day for the ring. A normal person would have thought, do you know what? Every time I mention the ring, he gets that kind of evil look in his eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait a week, act like sweetness and light and be lovely for a week, and then ask for the ring. Oh no, Natalie doesn't understand how to do that. It seems that she can't read the look on Mike's face. And again, when it came to her wedding, Mike bought not one cake, not one balloon, not one napkin, nothing, nada. Natalie, did you really think his heart was in it? Did you really think you were getting married? His refusal to buy anything at all or even talk about it would have told me months before there was a big problem. And also, let's take a trip back to when she threw the ring at Mike. It's not really the fact that she gave him the ring back. That's kind of bad enough. But she actually launched it at him. And so, knowing that that's a family heirloom, you would know that's just an absolute no-no. But for Natalie, it's something that she thought was no big deal. And she didn't actually apologise for it until she wanted the ring back again 2 months into her being in the US. So she didn't even think, I'm really genuinely sorry, I shouldn't have done that. She just apologised to get the ring back. And then finally, because I could go on about this all afternoon, the truth be told, but I'm going to wrap it up with this one. She's busy sitting telling Mike, you've got a low IQ, I've got a really high IQ, 110. But anyway, okay, maybe she has got a high IQ, maybe she got the figures mixed up, but anyone with a high EQ would have known you never tell somebody whom you believe to have a low IQ that they have a low IQ unless one, you're never going to see them again, or two, you don't give an F about them because you know that's something that's never going to disappear from your mind. In my mind, she may as well have just cheated on him. That's pretty much how bad it is. It was completely emasculating, but Natalie just thinks she can apologise the next morning and everything's going to be fine. So guys, let me know what you think in comments down below. Does Natalie have a low EQ? I think she does, and I think this doesn't bode well for Mike because I don't ever see it really changing. As far as I'm concerned, that's kind of it. This is how Natalie is, and this is who Natalie is, and I don't see her changing. I think whoever's with her just has to get used to the fact that she has two settings: the Arctic and the surface of the fucking sun. Guys, thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and all of that good stuff. It's fun over here. And also don't forget to hit the bell notification if you want to know every time I drop a video. You've been listening to Ebird Online and I bid you good day.